Good morning, John. So today I went on Google and asked what's the difference between, and then completely forgot what I was asking because the questions that other people are asking were so dang interesting. So today, for every letter of the alphabet, I shall answer the question people are asking. What's the difference between a crow and a raven? They're two completely different species. If there's a bunch of them and they act and sound kind of annoying, those are crows. If there's one of them and you accidentally mistook it for a cat because it's huge, that's a raven. What's the difference between baking soda and baking powder? Baking soda is a chemical, sodium bicarbonate, that produces CO2 gas when mixed with something acidic and thus makes baked goods fluffier. Baking powder is a mixture that includes baking soda and the acid, so all you need to add is water. What's the difference between college and university? In the US, a college is a school that teaches only the years directly after secondary school. Universities also have graduate programs. Sometimes universities have colleges inside of them, and other times, just to be confusing, colleges have colleges inside of them. What's the difference between dinner and supper? Depends on who and where you are, but mostly they're the same thing. When supper is different, it tends to refer to a lighter or more informal evening meal to dinner. What's the difference between English and British? England is a country inside the country of Great Britain. Welsh, Scottish, and Northern Irish people are all British, though they may not love it, but they are decidedly not English. What's the difference between fur and hair? Scientifically, nothing. What's the difference between gelato and ice cream? For a frozen treat to be considered ice cream in the United States, it needs to have at least 20% milk solids and 10% milk fat. Gelato is traditionally made with all or mostly milk and not cream. What's the difference between Hulu and Hulu Plus? Hulu Plus costs money and you can watch it on your TV or mobile device. It also has slightly more content. What's the difference between the iPhone 5C and the iPhone 5S? In general, stuff is a bit nicer on the 5S. The design, the camera, the processor, but they're both very nice. What's the difference between jelly and jam? Jam is jellied fruit pulp. Jelly is jellied juice. Jam is softer. What's the difference between kun and san? Kun and san are honorific suffixes added to names to show respect in Japanese. San is used between equals, while kun is used in reference to someone junior to you. What's the difference between LCD and LED? LCD, liquid crystal display, is a kind of display technology. LED, light-emitting diode, is a kind of backlighting. They have nothing to do with each other, and these days all TVs are LCD, and most are backlit by LEDs. What's the difference between me and you? Huh? What's the difference between NAS and SAN? I really have no idea. Something to do with IT infrastructure. Out of my league. Sorry. What's the difference between objective and subjective? Subjective statements are based on opinion. Objective statements are based on fact. What's the difference between prison and jail? Jail is where you go when you're waiting for your trial or have just been arrested or detained. Prison is where you go when you've been found guilty and sentenced to be incarcerated. What's the difference between quick format and full format? Both will wipe all of the data from your hard drive, but only the full format will rebuild the file structures the drive itself uses to store files and scan for bad sectors on the drive. What's the difference between Rangers and Green Berets? Both are special operations forces in the U.S. Army. Any recruit can apply to be a Ranger, but only soldiers who have been in the Army for at least 3 years can apply to be a Green Beret. Green Berets also need to speak at least 2 languages. The duties performed by both groups are similar. What's the difference between Scotch and whiskey? Scotch is a type of whiskey. It's Scotch, meaning from Scotland. What's the difference between to and two? To means excessively, or also. Two is just like all the other times. Unless it's a number. What's the difference between Uber and Lyft? As far as I can tell, nothing. They're both newfangled ways to get taxis, and people are surprisingly excited about both considering most taxis will be driven by robots in 10 years. What's the difference between a visa and a green card? Green cards give you the right to permanently live and work in the U.S., while visas only allow you to work and stay temporarily. What's the difference between white asparagus and green asparagus? They're the same plant, but when white asparagus grows, farmers heap dirt on it. In the absence of light, it can't produce chlorophyll, and it also doesn't need the structures necessary to stand on its own, so it's milder in flavor and more tender. What's the difference between x86 and x64? x64 is the Windows 7 version that works with newer machines, while x86 is designed for older 32-bit computers. What's the difference between yellow and green zucchini? They are different colors. What's the difference between zucchini and squash? The zucchini is a squash! Hank, I'll see you on Friday. John, I'll see you on Tuesday.